Do not adjust your dial. There's a lot of pink going on here. I'll explain that in a little while during the Alderman liaison reports and report from the mayor's office, so bear with me. This evening, a few highlights about our agenda and our meeting. We have two special recognition items on tonight's agenda. We will sit this evening as a beer board, so we will take a short recess and then we will convene as a beer board to hear an application and have a public hearing. We have three development items on the agenda this evening that will all have public hearings associated with those items. This evening we'll also have elections of IDB members. We have a portion of our program, our meeting, known as Citizens to be Heard. If you'd like to speak to the board, there's a sheet out front that has some guidelines that has to be filled out. If you'd like to speak to the board, you fill that sheet out and bring it to the city clerk up front, and she will hand it to me. You will be acknowledged in item number 8. Since we have, in essence, 4 public hearings this evening, if you came to speak at any one of those public hearings, you do not have to fill out a Citizens to be Heard sheet. That is a separate item, and you'll just come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. This evening, our invocation will be led by IT Director Tony Fisher. Alderman John Barziza will lead us in the pledge. Please rise.
Please bow your heads. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of city business. Be with the board in their deliberations and help them be wise in their decisions. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. It is in your name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. That brings us to item number 4 on the agenda this evening, the approval of the agenda. The agenda has been preset by the board and published to the public. During executive session, the board meets from 5:30 to 6, goes over the agenda. At that particular time, there were no modifications or adjustments to the agenda as presented to the public. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman yes.
Vice Mayor Dixon? Yes.
Alderman yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Young?
Yes.
The agenda has been set for this evening. That takes us to item number 5, approval of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting held on September 25th, 2017. For the public's knowledge, there was not a quorum for the regular scheduled meeting on October 9th, 2017, so there was no board meeting, subsequently no minutes, obviously. During executive session, there was one item identified, the beer board, beer permit, manufacture and sale of beer for off-premise for Rock and Dough Pizza. The vote was, a typo was recorded on the vote, and that has since been corrected. Are there any other modifications at this time? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as modified?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Dixon? Yes. Alderman
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Abstain.
Alderman Young?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
The minutes have been approved as presented. Takes us to item number 8 on the agenda, special recognition. We have 2 items this evening. The first, a proclamation that I'll read into the record. I think it's very fitting that this evening that we look at specifically one of our value statements in the city of Germantown. We are a community of kindness. What better proclamation to have a proclamation for the Extra Mile Foundation. Whereas Germantown is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service, And whereas Germantown is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Germantown is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Germantown acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 575 Extra Mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2017. Now, therefore, I, Mike Palazzolo, Mayor of the City of Germantown, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2017 to be Extra Mile Day in the City of Germantown and urge each individual in the community to take the time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or own life, but to also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, or world a better place. So on November 1st, we'll have Extra Mile Day in the city, and we welcome that as a community of kindness. Takes us to item 6B on the agenda, Beautification Commission Business Award. Vice Mayor Gibson will lead us there.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could ask for our commission member, Ms. Evelyn Ward, as well as Ms. Sarah Simmons, Community Manager for Bridges at Germantown. The purpose of this agenda item is to recognize the Bridges of Germantown apartment property located at 7491 Windhurst Place as the recipient of the October Beautification Commission Business Award. The Bridges at Germantown is a luxury apartment complex that is known for professionally installed and maintained landscape gardens. The entrance features a lovely bridge over the end of a small lake, which is surrounded with green and purple ornamental grasses, red begonias, orange coleus, yellow lantana, and ornamental rocks. Beyond the bridge is a stately brick arbor covered in wisteria. The landscape beds situated over the entire site are planted with islands of crepe myrtle, liriope, and irises welcoming guests along the main street of the complex. Along each side of the street are bricked flower beds filled with purple barberry bushes, boxwoods, black elephant ears, azaleas, crepe myrtles, grasses, and yellow lantana. Beds of banana trees, blue salvia, black elephant ears, red begonias, liriope, and white impatiens welcome guests into the property office. Two magnificent mums planted with ferns and caladiums flank this front door. The level of landscape detail, maintenance, and care of this Germantown property demonstrates pride in their appearance and their commitment to helping the city look beautiful. The Beautification Commission expressed much appreciation for their efforts. This property is beautifully maintained by landscaper Michael Lowry with Turf Master. Ms. Simmons, we thank you so much, and congratulations on being the October.
On behalf of the citizens of Germantown and the board, we do congratulate you. We very much appreciate when our businesses keep our city beautiful. It's good for you, it's good for us, so thank you so much. Keep up the good work. That takes us to item number 7 on the agenda this evening, Alderman Liaison Reports. We go from position 1 through 5. Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. The Senior Advisory Commission met last week, and I just want to reiterate what I've said last month. On November the 2nd, the Senior Expo will take place at GPAC, and as well as throughout the whole area over there. The time frame is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Encourage all to attend, no matter if you're young or old. The Economic Development Commission did not meet this last month, and tomorrow we have the Historic Commission meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Vice Mayor Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neighborhood Preservation Commission's summit begins tomorrow evening from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Great Hall. We are calling the summit Get in the Game. We want you as citizens to learn how to become involved in your community, if you already are, how to better be involved within the community. We will have presentations that begin at 5:30 where attendees can enjoy delicious appetizers. We're going to pull you in with the good food. We'll have tables that will feature each of the neighborhoods and what their contributions and achievements have been over the years, as well as nonprofit organizations will be there as well. So hopefully y'all will be able to come by 5:30 to 8:30 at the Great Hall. Our library board, the Friends of the Bookstore, is still selling books at $1 and $2 a pop with great success. Ongoing initiatives, the Every Book Counts initiative, which will benefit one of our classrooms here in the Germantown Municipal School District. We ask that if you don't have a library card, please get one, as well as the Books from Birth. If you know a baby under age 4, I believe, maybe age 5, make sure that they are signed up for that important initiative that encourages reading at such a young age. The Beautification Commission has worked with staff on final plans for holiday decorations for this upcoming season. They hold their next meeting on Monday, November 6th at 5:30 at the Parks and Recreation Office. We ask that you save these dates: Friday, November 24th for the holiday tree lighting event at 5 p.m. at the Municipal Park. Tuesday, December 12th will be the last day to submit your online entry for the holiday lighting contest. So those are very important. The BZA did not meet in October, but we certainly will meet in November. And as far as the extra mile, Mayor, if I could take just a moment to commend, speaking of miles, Alderman Owens, I know you did the ride to Rosemary. It's much appreciated. Even the pink that's worn today, our mayor, it's a sight to see you in that pink seersucker suit. So with your Real Men Wear Pink initiative, for anyone that's been touched by cancer, I thank you for that. So well done.
Very well said, Vice Mayor. Alderman Massey.
The Public Safety and Education Commission that did not meet, but we did participate in the Germantown Night Out program. Also want to remind everyone that the drug take-back program will be at Kroger and Target this Saturday from 10 to 2. So if you have old prescription drugs that you'd like to get rid of, they're perhaps expired, you can bring them to Kroger or Target from 10 to 2 this Saturday. The Great Hall Commission met last Wednesday, and we reviewed the updated budget. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Owens.
Yes, Mayor, the Parks and Recreation Commission met with their Master Plan Steering Committee last week to review the preliminary draft of the master plan that was created by our consulting team. A public presentation was held last Thursday at the Great Hall to unveil this draft plan. I see many folks in the audience who were there that night, and hopefully a lot of you were watching live as it was presented. You can still see that preliminary plan on our website, and there's still time to provide feedback on that. The Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as staff, had several meetings which took place with the major park users. As you know, our partners and stakeholders also were included to ensure that feedback was received. But the master plan draft is going to be up on our website, or feedback will be allowed through October 27th. So if you have comments on that, or you have not had a chance to review it, please review it on the city's website and provide us with comments so we can make sure that everyone is included.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Yonda.
Did you do that in one breath? That was pretty good. Yes, the Retirement Commission and the post-benefit were the same. All is well with those funds. We made a few changes here and there. In fact, they're doing great. We may even have our next meeting in Acapulco. They're doing so well, so who knows. The next one is, y'all didn't get that, huh?
That's on the record there, Alderman.
That's okay, that's it. We may not have it there. We may not even be there anymore, who knows. The Environmental Commission, we have the tonnage. We have total tons from the Amnesty Dumpster Day, say that 40 times, on 9/17. We have 21.36 tons of scrap metal, et cetera, and everything. And it was 5.12 tons of scrap metal, 7.57 tons of electronics, and then VCR, which is the Vital Records Control, have brought 2 trucks this time and additional carts for shredding, which they don't weigh the trucks. Total number of vehicles through the locations, both locations, were 838. This vehicle total was up 17%. Also, as a special note, I'd like to thank the Environmental Commission members for their assistance and the staff of Public Service. Appreciate that very much, Bo. Looking ahead to next year, the third Saturday is on April 21st, the third Saturday of April, and the third Saturday of September is on the 15th. So if you have any kind of items you want to get rid of, put that on your calendar. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman, for that report. From the mayor's office, just briefly, kind of in a go the extra mile, and again, the community of kindness, I have been enlisted to be a Real Men Who Wear Pink for the month of October. You were spared since we did not have a meeting on October 9th, because I would have worn this outfit that evening as well, violating the Searsucker Pass Labor Day rule. But I do, this is a great cause, and obviously so many of us have been touched by cancer in different ways, whether it's family members, friends, or members of the community. If you'd like more information about this effort, you can email me, and I'll be glad to get you in touch with the American Cancer Society. So I appreciate this, and let's make sure that we find a cure for breast cancer. That concludes our Alderman liaison reports, and now we move to citizens to be heard. We had 2 sheets this evening. I will call you to the podium here in a moment, and when you come forward, just state your name for the record. We do have you have filled out the guidelines and have read the guidelines, and so I will go ahead and ask for Jackie Cliff to come forward. And just come to one of the podiums and state your name. No need for the address, we have it in here, but your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Jackie Clift. I've lived in Germantown for over 42 years. That may be older or longer than some of you have been on this earth, although I doubt it. I'm here to speak for the Suburban Garden Club of Germantown. We adopted the park at the Library Gardens, the area immediately north of the library building, about 20 years ago. We were very lucky in that one of our members left us a sum of money that we were able to use in her memory, and that was the water feature that we have at the Library Gardens. Over the ensuing years, we have built beds around that water feature to where we have 8 different beds there now. We have won national, regional, and state awards for the Library Garden. We're very pleased to have had Melissa Jones as our designer in-house, and she's done a beautiful job in leading us in our mission. Now you may think, what's a garden club doing with this? I thought they just made flower arrangements and had tea parties and lunches. Well, we do that, but we do the civic projects too. This is the way garden clubs function in the 21st century. We thank the city for letting us participate on a partner basis with them. Bo Mills and Jamie have done a super job for us in helping us do the heavy lifting. But at this point, we have some problems there. We have erosion, and we have water problems on the east side of the garden. And of course, we have the geese, which like to eat our ferns and flowers. But what we're here about tonight is the erosion and water problems. We fully accept and encourage and endorse the city's plan to redesign the library gardens and to add sidewalks that are ADA accessible so that all persons of all abilities will be able to enjoy the gardens. Our plants are labeled, so it is an educational event also. And here's to another 20 years of partnering with the city with the library gardens. Thank you.
Well, Melissa Jones, would you like to come forward as well? Just state your name for the record, and we have your sheet here. You'll have about 3 minutes to make your presentation.
Well, not to be redundant, but to definitely echo Jackie's statements to you. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Melissa Jones. I've lived in Germantown since 1959. It's been a great pleasure to not only cut roses in Portee, but to also dig in the dirt and plant the trees and plant the fence posts. Suburban Garden Club is the oldest garden club in Germantown, and we have been involved with almost every inch of this community park system. From the early days of the old depot, the most pathetic tree you've ever seen was planted there by ladies and gentlemen that none of us could identify, but it's in the 10-gen library. There's a picture of it. So we moved from the depot. We then became involved with Mabel Williams, which is now Germantown High School. From there, we planted the post office, what is now the Parks and Recreation Committee that was the City Hall. We planted there. In fact, that was my first hands-on experience, was planting. And some of the Nandinas, I think, are still struggling, even though that was 60 years ago. They may have fared better than I have. I'm not sure about that. At any rate, of course, the Germantown Charity Horse Show grounds are our stellar part because of the beauty of the cherry trees and the avenue which we have planted. They are on the front of C.O. Franklin Park. Melanie Smith Lane, which was one more joint effort with the city, who helped us. We have not only put in our, I think the unfortunate term is sweat equity, not the most attractive term, but one easily translatable. We have dug in that dirt. We have perspired heavily in this tropical summers we have here. And we're very proud of what's happened at Melanie Smith Lane. She is one of our leading, most well-known international citizens. And to honor her by naming the entrance into the Charity Horse Show grounds was a great privilege. Leadership Germantown has pitched in and helped plant at different times and to remove some very dying and dead plants there. At any rate, not to belabor the point, we've worked hard. We've put much money, much effort, and much of our minds into planning and hopefully beautifying. But the glory of it to me comes about in watching at the library gardens, which is our newest endeavor. It's such an unusual little niche of serenity. The old trees there are beautiful. The terrain has more roll than most of Shelby County. From the fountain, which is down in a natural hollow, up to the entrance off Exeter, it's an extraordinary piece of ground. And we have named it our Memorial Garden, and every year we plant more dogwoods, redbuds, buckeyes, all the things that we can think of to honor members of our garden club who have gone on to greater gardens. At any rate, we'd like to ask you to help us and to let us help you, the city, in making this garden more accessible to people. It's such a pleasure to see children with their parents coming through the garden and stopping to see when we are planting daylilies or trimming the irises, and they want to know why, and they want a shovel so they can dig too. And that's a learning thing. Jackie has almost single-handedly labeled every plant in that 2.5 acres so that people can identify something they like and add it to their own garden, which enhances our community. We see men there with their lunches from McDonald's, or well, we're not to use a term, but their handy little lunch bags and their computers, and they're taking a lunch break in a beautiful area of tranquil trees and native plants. I see older men who are there with their newspapers and their coffee cups in the morning, and it's rewarding to see that this much effort is being enjoyed. Thank you for hearing me out. I hope you will vote for this because, as it is, you have to be hale and hearty to walk that whole place, and to be able to put the new sidewalks in and the new drainage will enable us to preserve our plants and enable any disabled person to travel the whole area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. This is not the normal, but I think it's appropriate that we say thank you to the Suburban Garden Club. Thank you. That brings us to item number 9 on our agenda this evening. We will now meet as a beer board. We are now recessed as a board of mayor and aldermen, only temporarily, and now we are now assembled as the Germantown Beer Board for the work of having a public hearing and taking an application for a temporary beer permit for on-premise consumption. The applicant's the Germantown Education Foundation. Staff presentation by Mr. Heisman.
Mayor and members of the board, before you is a request from the Germantown Education Foundation to receive a temporary beer sales permit for on-premise consumption during the upcoming Oktoberfest event at Germantown Civic Complex, which will take place on Saturday, November 4th from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. Because the request for a temporary beer permit was made by a nonprofit organization without ownership interests, background checks are not required. As with past practice, the city requested a completed application for the permit since the event will be taking place on public property. Based on the fundraising nature of the event and the foundation's legal and procedural compliance, the administration recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Heisman. Before we let staff take questions, let's go ahead and have our public hearing so that the community can come forward and the board can have that before they render a decision. I now open a public hearing for this temporary beer permit for on-premise consumption applied for by the Germantown Education Foundation. The public hearing is open. Would anyone like to come forward and speak to this application? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak on this particular application for an on-site, on-premise temporary beer permit? Third and final call. Anyone who would like to come forward? Seeing no one come forward, the public hearing is now concluded, and we go to the board or to the beer board for any questions of staff. Also, Stephanie Brockway, the executive director of the Germantown Education Foundation, is here in attendance as well, can field any questions. Board?
Question for Ms. Brockway.
Sure. Would you like to come forward and state your names for the record, please.
Stephanie Brockway.
Yep.
And Mindy Fisher.
Ladies, I saw in the agenda that you're going to have a liquor by the drink license, temporary liquor by the drink license. How many bars will you have?
One and only in the VIP tent.
Okay, that's the only question I have.
Yes, sir.
Did you want to make any presentation or anything before the board this evening?
We just want to thank the city. We want to thank everybody here. It has been a wonderful adventure, and we really could not have done it without everyone, all the way from Public Works to every single component of the city. We thank you. We want to invite everybody. It's going to be a wonderful event. We're very excited about it, and we just appreciate everybody's support.
We'd also like to request an amendment for a rain date. That was missed on our application. We're so excited meeting all the requirements for this that we weren't planning on rain.
Actually, I've been in total denial about rain, so so we would like to request an amendment for the following day, which is Sunday, the 5th, and from 12 until noon on the same premises.
12 until noon?
From noon until 6 p.m.
Noon until 6. Questions from the board?
You do know that TABC permit will not transfer to the next day?
Yes, sir. We've been in contact with them.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
they are aware of it?
Yes, sir.
And have given you another permit?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
We're in the middle of working on that. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thanks.
City Attorney, do you have any, this request for amendment, do you have anything you'd like to add, or is this?
Well, Mayor, members of the board, it seems to me that decision is within the discretion of the beer board. And so you could have any discussion you'd like to have about it.
Any questions for our city attorney or for the Education Foundation members?
Just a brief comment.
Sure.
Mayor. So Ms. Brockway and Ms. Fisher, I think y'all know I'm the Public Safety Education Commission liaison, and in the past I have not voted in favor of allowing the beer permits on public property. I'm going to take that position again tonight, but that doesn't reflect on how I feel about your contributions to education. I appreciate what you do, and just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Massey.
Is there a motion to approve a temporary beer permit for the Germantown Education Foundation allowing the sale of beer on publicly owned property at the Germantown Civic Club Complex at 7745 Poplar Pike on Saturday, November 4th, 2017 from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. and on November 5th from from noon to 6 p.m. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzillo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Thank you.
You have your approval, and let's pray that there's no rain and that there'll be 10 or 20,000 people there supporting the Education Foundation. 176 years as a city, and we're celebrating our inaugural Oktoberfest, so we're putting the German back into Germantown. That takes us to the consent agenda. I'll go over those items quickly. Sure.
In regards to the rain date, should we not vote on that?
It was included in the motion, so it covers both dates.
Is it?
Yeah, the mayor recited the additional rain
Okay, I
date
didn't hear it.
in his request for a
Never
motion.
mind, I'm sorry.
Takes us to the consent agenda.
But you're right, we should have, and we did.
The board met in executive session and went through each item of the consent agenda. I will go through those items quickly. Item 10A, board appointment for the library board. Item 10B, a contract to purchase defibrillator maintenance. Item C, a contract with the Tennessee Highway Safety Grant, for a safety grant. Item D, construction contract, library streetscape enhancement and site improvements. Item E, donation to the police department. Item F, professional services agreement, police parking lot expansion. Item G, purchase of vehicles. Item H, purchase emergency warning equipment for fire vehicles. Item I, purchase for SimMan patient mannequin. Item J, purchase printing and mailing services. Item K, purchase senior expo booth equipment rental services. Item L, resolution 17R23, business credit card application and signature cards. Item M, state report on debt obligation, series 2017. All items of the consent agenda were fully printed before the meeting and also reviewed in executive session. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzillo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved as presented. That brings us to item number 11 on the agenda this evening, ordinance 2017-08, amend Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 5, Section 182 of the Code of Ordinances, revision to Neighborhood Preservation Commission membership requirements, first reading, and set public hearing. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This request for ordinance revision really works in the favor of the Neighborhood Preservation Commission. There are, by ordinance, 2 seats that are occupied by members from the Design Review Commission and the Planning Commission. Over the last several years, those seats have not typically been filled or utilized, and so the Neighborhood Preservation Commission, through work with their aldermen, has requested moving forward with this ordinance change to allow for those seats to become open seats as far as for any citizen to apply for those seats so that we can have a couple more residents on our Neighborhood Preservation Commission as part of the work that they do, including the Neighborhood Summit tomorrow night over at the Great Hall starting at 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve on first reading ordinance 2017-08, amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 5, Section 182 of the Code of Ordinances, and to set the second reading and public hearing for November 27th, 2017?
Move to approve.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions for staff? Please call the roll.
Yes.
Alderman Barzillo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
The measure is approved and goes to second reading. Threw me off there, Alderman. Agenda item number 12, Resolution 17R20, Gardena Court Plan Development Outline Plan Revocation. Mr. Ross.
Thank you again, Mayor and members of the board. The request for item number 12 is for the revocation of the Gardena Court Plan Development. This is on the north side of Winchester Road and east of Crestwin Hills Drive. It's Crestwin Hills, Winchester, subject property. This is 10.53 acre parcel that was approved as the Gardena Court Plan Unit Development by Shelby County in 1991. It was part of the annexation in 2000 that was Germantown's last annexation. And as part of that, the area in question was rezoned to C1 neighborhood commercial. That's the 10.53 acres. The remaining area that shows T4 on the map, the underlying zoning is office. In 2016, this area was rezoned to the T4 Smart Code District as part of the recommendations of the Forest Hill Heights Small Area Plan. Property has remained undeveloped since its annexation in 2000. On September 5th, the Planning Commission heard an application for this revocation and granted approval. This does require action by both the Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen according to 23-576. Planning Commission shall meet and forward their recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen concerning the repeal of approval of the outline or other final plan of development. This is the recorded outline plan that has all of the restrictions and requirements of the Gardena Court Plan Development. This revocation will work in accordance with T4 zoning. The current plan development allows for the development of just commercial uses in accordance with the conditions that are reflected on the document. These conditions are hard to read on this, but the plat is also included in your packet. The property had no final plans recorded on it, no final plans approved by Memphis or the Shelby County or the Germantown Planning Commission. So the revocation of this existing plat will null and void the regulating of how this property develops and allow for the owners to move forward with the next item on the agenda if this is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Before we open the public hearing, let me go ahead and get a motion. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 17R20 for the revocation of Gardena Court PD Outline Plan?
So moved.
Second.
So motion and a second. At this time, we will open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak to this particular item on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to this particular item, come forth to the podium and state your name, address with zip code, and you'll be heard by the board. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak on this particular item on the agenda? Third and final call, seeing no one come forward, that concludes the public hearing portion of this agenda item. Are there any questions for staff on this particular item? There's been a motion. Please call the roll.
But Mayor, I do have
Sure.
some comments.
Alderman Massey.
I'd actually like to make a motion to postpone this vote tonight and have the board vote to allow outside counsel to conduct a formal examination and inquiry into whether or not the smart code and resulting amendments were legally approved. The citizens of Germantown would like to see a rigorous investigation without speculation. We should not be rushed because we need to get this right. I have in the past asked the mayor's administration to answer a number of questions related to how smart code was approved, how the amendments were brought forward. I still don't have a lot of answers to those questions. And I think it's something that we as a board need to resolve before we go forward with any more smart growth plans, which is what we're doing here. We're revoking the previous plan and replacing it with a smart growth outline plan. And I think we need to go back and resolve all the questions that I raised several months ago about the amendments and the smart code. And so at this time, I'm making that motion that we postpone this vote.
There's an amendment to defer this vote. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
No.
The amendment fails. We're back to the original resolution and the motion. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson? Yes. Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzillo?
No.
Motion carries. That takes us to item number 13 on the agenda this evening, Resolution 17R22, Viridian Planned Unit Development Outline Plan. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This item is concerning a portion of the property that was discussed in the previous item, north side of Winchester, abutting Collierville's town line. This property would include the 10.53 acre parcel that was previously discussed, and also combine it with 13.93 acres into one parcel, totaling 24.928 acres. As previously stated, this was part of a previous approval, as well as zoning underlying it for commercial and office that was part of the annexation in 2000. This was also included in the 2016 rezoning and smart code overlay for the Forest Hill Heights small area plan. The Planning Commission heard the outline plan application, which goes along the north side of the Forest Hill Heights plan area. The proposed outline plan includes the area to be developed. This is the area along Winchester, and then this is the north match line moving up. This is the north end of the property site. The concept plan that was developed as part of the approval by the Planning Commission included a concept that would be more than the Planning Commission approved. Planning Commission did approve 12 units to the acre. The applicant had originally asked for 15 units to the acre. That would total a little bit more than the 299 that was approved by Planning Commission. However, going along with this, the concept plan is merely a concept. The outline plan is what you see here that defines the entrance, the street features, and the boundaries of the site. The T4 district, which this is going, allows for a mix of uses to occur within the buildings that would include limited residential, limited commercial, limited retail, and limited office. This also has a maximum 3-story building height and a minimum 2-story building height. With the concept plan that was approved by the Forest Hill, as part of the Forest Hill Heights master plan for this area, it recommended this being developed with retail uses fronting along Winchester and residential uses on the remaining area to the north. It did recommend a residential density for this site being 8 or more dwelling units to the acre. Based on the market analysis, the recommended build-out schedule, and the small area plan, the optimum density ratio that was looked at by staff and approved by Planning Commission is 12 dwelling units to the acre. No warrants are required at this time as part of the outline plan approval. However, future warrants may be requested with future applications once the concept plan starts to develop into preliminary and final plans on this site. This does conform with our Forward 2030 plan of encouraging investments in our key commercial areas, and staff is open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 17R22 for the Viridian Planned Unit Development Outline Plan?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. At this time, we would ask that anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak to this, I am declaring a public hearing is currently open. If you'd like to speak toward this particular item on the agenda, please come forward. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward? Please come forward. State your name, address, and zip code for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name's Edgar Baby, and I live at 3580 Crestwood Drive, Germantown, Tennessee, 38138. First off, we just changed it for commercial, so now it is not zoned commercial. I went to the Planning Commission meeting on this, and there was very little information from the developer on this property. He wanted to put 4-story buildings, almost 450 apartments in here. He didn't want to have anything to do with commercial in the area as far as eateries and things like that. He just wanted apartments, okay? That's not what the smart growth was about. This developer wanted to put apartments. He wanted to put as many as he could on the property as possible. Now, if you approve this area for apartments, that makes the area to the east of it not advantageous for the 15,000 square foot lots that it is currently zoned for. It's zoned R for 15,000 square foot lots. The third thing in here is when we develop this right here, we have an area north of here that's now zoned office, but it's landlocked. There's no way to get there from Germantown. You're going to have to get to it from Collierville. You can't go across the railroad tracks. So we've got some problems. The fourth thing is, where's the water coming from? We've got a major water problem in this area. These are all going to have to be sprinkled. They're going to have water to support it. Well, the development that's proposed to the west of here, they're not going to put a water line in for 4 years or 4 phases. So we're not going to have water. We're going to run a water line down Forest Hill Irene Road, but I don't think that'll meet that. So there's a lot of concerns on this property. I'd prefer that you didn't approve this right now. Give a little more time. Let the developer give us something that he's going to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone else who'd like to come forward and speak to this particular item? Anyone who would like to come forward to speak to this particular item? Please do so now. Seeing no one come forward, this concludes the public hearing portion of this particular agenda item, and we return to the board for any questions of staff. Board? Alderman Yonda.
Yes, Mr. Ross, this of course is just an outline plan, but what's the density of the multifamily at Thornwood? Is it?
I believe it's around 17 units to the acre.
Okay.
However, don't quote me on that. I'd have to do some back of the napkin
It's okay.
math.
I'm sorry. I should have called you on this. I thought about it and forgot until now. Okay, but this is just an outline. There are going to be some specifics coming up and some changes as we go along per your discussion on other outlines, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
There are multiple bites of the apple.
Yeah. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Mr. Ross, we had talked about prior to even executive session, what it would mean, the 15 versus the 12, because originally in the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant asked for 15. Planning Commission decided 12 was what we were going to move forward with based on what that plan was brought forward from the applicant, correct?
Correct. 15 units to the acre with the 24.928 acres would result in 375 units versus the 299, 300 that was approved as far as 12 dwelling units to the acre is concerned.
Is it your understanding as far as the number of stories, because again, that I've heard loud and clear the concern from 3-story versus 4 stories, that with the 12 units per acre that they can accomplish that with 3 stories, is that correct?
They could accomplish that with 3 stories. They could accomplish it with 4 stories. It's really all in how they want to pursue their concept plan. Again, the
and that will
approval
come later for concept and design.
Correct. Approval of the outline plan is not approval of the concept plan.
Thank you.
Any other, Alderman Owens.
Yes, would you mind addressing the water issues as to what, I know we have a water line that is planned in Forest Hill Irene. I know that one is being developed with the adjacent plan development if approved. Can you just kind of talk us through that as far as, I guess what I'm trying to have some reassurance from you that we're not going to develop something down here that doesn't have appropriate water pressure to fight fires or to service.
The water pressure on the project site can be adjusted with the proper mechanics being put into the project, i.e. booster pumps. There is water pressure to serve the site, but booster pumps would probably be required as part of any fire and other approvals to make sure that it meets the ISO guidelines and other safety features that we in Germantown take seriously. But again, all of that would have to be worked out past the outline plan.
Any other questions for staff? Alderman Massey.
Who would be responsible for the cost of the booster pumps and that type of infrastructure?
That would be on the developer.
The developer. So I'd like to ask Chief Selberg a question, if he doesn't mind. So what additional equipment and resources are you going to need once we get, if this Goodwin Farms is approved and these apartments are approved? I mean, can you service that out of the one fire station there on Forest Hill? I presume that's the precinct that would respond.
Yes, sir. We've done evaluations in that area over the years on our response. The primary response will come from the station there on Forest Hill, backed up by the rest of the stations. It is within our normal response area. Obviously, there's going to be some challenges there with the Forest Hill Road widths and everything as we're trying to address, but it would be our normal equipment that we currently have.
Chief, how close is the...
Hold on, Alderman. Are you yielding the floor, Alderman Massey?
Not just yet, if you don't mind, Alderman. So, may I ask Mr. Binkley a question?
Please come state your name and address for the record.
Les Binkley, 5900 Poplar.
First of all, Mr. Binkley, I want to thank you for all the efforts you made to meet with each of us last week, and you were very pleasant to work with, and I appreciate that. I have concerns about the density of this project, and I'd like to know, when you did the traffic study, did you contemplate the Goodwin Farms development, and did you contemplate the new school that's going to be going on to Forest Hill? Do you know if your traffic study included that?
I'm going to let my civil engineer comment on that. His firm did the traffic study.
If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Michael Rogers, 9180 Crestwind Hills Drive. Actually, I think we did in that study. Did we come back and put Goodwin Farms? I'm pretty sure we did. We did come back and contemplate that, and so it's no issues with the traffic, traffic movement coming out of there, and we did base it on the 15 dwelling units per acre for what we did on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Mr. Ross, you know, I still have the same concerns about this agenda item that I had for the previous agenda item, and I generally oppose it for the same reasons related to the approval of the SMART code and those issues. There's still a lot of questions out there about SMART code. So again, I have some of the same questions about this agenda item as previous. So I think with that, I'll yield the floor.
Alderman Barzis.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, in regards to our sister city to the east, Collierville, how close is their closest station to that development?
Their closest one will be on Bahalia. We also have a Shelby County fire station just further down Forest Hill that would be able to back us up for any working instances.
Okay, now if we have those auxiliary pumps to ensure the water pressure, what happens if we lose power?
I'm sorry?
What happens if we lose power and those auxiliary pumps cannot work?
Generally, we will boost them with our own pumpers. But that adds an additional challenge, yes, sir.
Okay. Next question I have is in regards to topography as far as drainage. Tim?
Sure.
Thank you, Tim. My question is in regards to, I've heard from several folks that live in that area and haven't gone in that area and haven't seen a lot of drainage problems all around the city, drainage problems in current neighborhoods. I'm very concerned as to how we're going to handle and how the developer is going to handle the drainage in the entire development, whether we're talking about this or the next agenda item. I'm very concerned because that land is fairly low in areas, and there is a stream that runs through there. So would you please address that?
Yes, starting with the agenda item that we're discussing now, the Viridian, just overall, as far as drainage is concerned on any development, the post-development runoff cannot exceed the pre-development runoff. Developers are required to provide on-site detention such that, again, the runoff is not increased due to development. That will be the same for the Goodwin Farms area as well, which is next on the agenda. Both of these developments are draining toward the same culvert under Winchester Road, which is sized for the 100-year storm event. Again, those are just the general requirements. But again, site specifically, those details, Goodwin Farms is further along than Viridian is right now in their grading and drainage plans. But again, through review of the applications as they are brought to us, that is a high priority on any of our plans reviews.
Well, I'm extremely concerned because I get calls, I've gotten several calls from people in the community currently who are having a lot of drainage issues, and for all practical purposes, they're not being addressed. And we did address the laterals over the years, and that was a good thing. But there's some other issues, and I want to get with you at the office at some point in time and talk with you about it. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for staff? There's currently a motion on the table. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
No.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzisa?
No.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Item carries and is approved. It brings us to item number 14 on the agenda, Resolution 17R19, Goodwin Farms Planned Unit Development Outline Plan. Mr. Ross.
Thank you again, Mayor, members of the board. Item number 14 is for the Goodwin Farms Planned Unit Development on the north side of Winchester and east of Crestwin Hills. The subject property, as part of this outline plan for a 232-lot single-family planned unit development, is 99.08 acres off of Winchester Road, 1,000 feet east of Crestwin Drive. The property is currently zoned R residential, which allows for 15,000 square foot lots or 3 dwelling units to the acre. The developer is asking for a planned unit development to vary the lot widths and sizes across, including the widths and setbacks. This would be the deviation from the standard R low-density single-family residential zoning. A little bit of history on this project. This property, like the previous project, was annexed into Germantown in 2000. It was originally zoned RE1, residential estate, 1 acre lot minimum size. In 2004, it was rezoned to R with a concept plan for Versailles. This is the Versailles concept plan. It was 185 lots approved in 2004 as a concept plan that was presented as part of the rezoning. Staff has done research to determine where this project went, and Clark & Clark did not further develop this project after they got the zoning approval from RE1 to R. This was presented as part of the concept plan in 2004 as part of the rezoning. It was a concept plan. A site plan was never approved. In 2014, Ansley Park Plan Unit Development was proposed on 31 acres of the south side for 50 houses of varying lot types. This was denied by the Planning Commission. In 2016, Ansley Park subdivision with 51 lots of 15,000 square feet was approved but has never been built. The current proposal is for 232 lots with varying lot sizes from 15,000 square feet on the west side that are more appropriate in context and for the existing straight residential zoning on the west side, and then moving to 12,000 square foot lots, 9,000 and 6,500 square foot lots. This is Winchester moving north into the development. These lots on the west side of the development are all lot type A, the 15,000 square feet. As you move north, you have, again, lot type A, common open space. This is, again, a connection to the stub street. This was also a connection to the stub street that is part of the Crestwind Hills subdivision. These stub streets then come around and you start to transition into the smaller lot types, the 12,000, 9,000, and 6,500 square foot lots. This would be a 10-phase plan over a period of time based on market conditions in order to take this down properly. For a PUD, a plan unit development, the outline plan is the first step. As part of this, Planning Commission recommended approval of the plan unit development outline plan at their meeting on October 1st. If approved tonight, this outline plan could allow the applicant to move forward with preliminary and final site plans to be considered by the Planning Commission. Per section 23-566, the city may approve a plan unit development if it meets one or following of the objectives outlined in that section. In this case, this development meets virtually all of those. While the property is currently zoned R, the developer is seeking 3 variances as part of their plan unit development. One is for the minimum lot area. I've already gone through those lot types. The second is for the minimum lot width. 100 feet is part of the requirements in the standard residential. Their ranges are 90, 70, and 60 as part of the 4 lot types. And they're also requesting a variance from the minimum building setback. It's a total of 10 feet on each side. The plan unit development proposes 5-foot side setbacks for lot types B, C, and D. So the standard 15,000 square foot lots, or lot type A, would be developed. Other than the lot width, they would be moving forward with a 90-foot lot width in some cases. Otherwise, those lots would be developed as standard residential single-family lots under the 15,000 square foot rule. The developer has worked with staff, Planning Commission, and neighbors to revise this project since their first submittal going as far back as 2014. Some of the key revisions through the course of these projects have been increasing the lot sizes to 15,000 square feet overall as part of the Ansley Park subdivision to now as part of the larger Goodwin Farms plan unit development, increasing side yard setbacks for the 15,000 square foot lots, having conversations with the Parks Department about possible neighborhood park opportunities, reordering the phases of the project to discourage excessive construction traffic through the built portions. They've also met with the engineering department numerous times as recently as last week to refine some of the staff comments and neighbor concerns about road geometry and other issues specifically related to the drainage that Mr. Gwaltney discussed. Staff does feel that the plan as they have designed it now, going in concept prior to preliminary and final plan approval, in concept has the best opportunity to meet the requirements that he discussed of having post-development conditions be at least, if not better, than pre-development conditions. Following the recommendation of the approval by the Planning Commission in October, The applicant has met with neighbors to slightly revise the plan concept, as Alderman Owens alluded to in the executive session. These revisions are going to be addressed in more detail in the preliminary and final site plan phases. They've also met with as many of the aldermen as they could meet with. I believe they've met with all 5 of you at this point, and met with Alderman Massey as recently as last week to talk about these site plan problems. And again, this also meets the Forward 2030 objectives in terms of improving investments in our current single-family areas as well as investments in our key commercial areas.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Is there a motion to approve the Goodwin Farms PUD outline plan?
So moved.
Second. There's a motion and a second. At this time, I would open a public hearing. Anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak on this particular application, please come forward. Come to the podium, state your name and address with zip code for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to this particular item.
Good evening. My name is Edgar Baby, and I live at 3580 Crestwind Drive, Germantown, Tennessee, 38138. I moved into this area in 1993. Our homeowners association has worked diligently to get things zoned certain ways and keeping things zoned. In 2004, as we discussed earlier, we worked with the developer to change the zoning lots from RE1 to R. That was 15,000 square foot lots. We knew that the 1 acre estates wasn't the best thing. We're 1 acre. We didn't want anything less than 15,000 square foot. So when we did all this, we were saying, well, we can live with R, but nothing smaller. Back in 2014, when the developer came in and wanted to put in smaller lots, we said, no, we don't want that. One of the people on the Planning Commission looked it up, and yeah, we had an agreement, nothing less than 15,000 square foot. So they came in, it wasn't approved, and then when they came back and asked for the next development, all the lots were 15,000 square foot. They met the requirements. We don't have any problem with it. We have no problem if you do the 15,000 square foot lots. Now, the developer that's come in, we've had several meetings with him or them on the size of the lots. If you look at that, there's a lot of them that are less than 15,000 square foot. Of the 232 proposed lots, 93% of them, or 93 lots, or 39.7%, it's a little less than 40, are 6,500 square feet. We have 30% of the lots are 9,000 square feet. We have 15% or 12,000. Oh, those 15,000 square foot lots, we have 14.7%. Of the 232 lots, 34 of them are 15,000 square foot. That's nowhere near 15,000 square foot per lot. Okay, my lot is 1 1/3 acres. You can put 9 of those 6,500 square foot lots on my size lot where we are just west of there. Okay, this is crazy. There's a lot of drainage problems. Our big problem is traffic. We don't want the traffic in our subdivision. When you put a street light on Crestwind Hills in Crestwind, the traffic from the subdivision is going to come out. From this subdivision, when you can't get out on Winchester, they're going to cut over to us. We provided an alternate, it's on page 18 and 19 of y'all's packet, that showed a couple of codes in there. They would not lose any lots. They would have worked with us, but they haven't worked with us. They put a little bit of cut through over there and to offset it just a little bit, but the Planning Commission, just about everybody said, take a very good look at our drawing.
You have approximately 15 seconds. Just
Okay.
please wrap
But
up.
our big problem is we don't want the traffic in our subdivision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Babian. Anyone else that would like to come forward and speak on this particular agenda item, please come forward, state your name and address.
Joe Garaffa, 9440 Forestwood Road. I just want to reiterate what Edgar had to say, and I think the important thing to look at is the numbers. Almost 37% of the development is going to be on 6,500 square foot lots. We as a neighborhood were cooperative with the last change to 15,000 square foot lots. Now we're being asked for a big change in that number. And I think you should look at the history, look at our cooperation in the past, and reject this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graffa. Anyone else who'd like to come forward and speak on this particular item, please come forward, state your name and address with zip code for the record, please.
Phil Connor, 3664 Crestwind Drive, Germantown, 38138. Mayor Palazzolo, Vice Mayor Gibson, Alderman, I first want to commend Alderman Massey for his attempts to try to understand the situation. He came to a meeting between some of the members of the subdivision and the developer. I'm afraid we didn't accomplish much, but we're optimistic. I believe we still can. Mr. Ross, in most of his remarks, if you were listening, he pretty well stated our case against this proposal in his remarks, if you were listening to them. And that revolves around what's been said already. Putting a high-density proposal in a low-density area. I want to read you something. This was from 2004. It says here, this is the minutes from the Planning Commission. Alderman Parrish stated he was part of the process of seeing this property annexed, and he was part of the process of talking to the residents of the area, telling them that everything would be done to protect the zoning of this area. Now, what we've seen recently is not everything. It's far from everything. We saw a zoning commission who barely even discussed it publicly. They came out, they made no mention of the number of lots. They made no mention of the size of the lots. They showed total disregard for our comments. Now, in 2004, we'd only been part of the city for 4 years. The city was showing great respect to the new residents of the area. Alderman Parrish was selected by the Zoning and Planning Commission and the Mayor and Alderman Board to be the face and the voice of Germantown city government. He took personal interest in meeting with the residents, meeting with the developer, and arriving at a conclusion which was convincing the residents to finally agree to 15,000 square foot lots. Let me read you this again. We're going to do everything to protect the zoning of the area. That means 15,000 square foot lots, nothing more. That's it. Now, times have changed a little bit, and I'm speaking for myself here. They are proposing 230 lots. The previous proposal granted in 2004 was 185. Now, from my opinion, I think we may have some negotiating room there. We may not be locked into 185 lots, but they do appear to be locked into 230. We believe there's some middle ground that can be achieved here, but not if you approve this tonight. So what we ask is send this back, give us a chance to do some serious negotiating. The negotiating we've done so far has really not been serious. We were pretty well blown off, if you pardon my vernacular. But if we can go back and do some serious negotiating, I believe we can arrive at something in between and come back to you with a proposal that's a win-win for everybody. Right now, it's a win for the developer and a lose for us. You represent us, so as our elected officials, please reject this tonight, send it back, let us renegotiate this. Thank you.
Mr. Connors. Is there anyone else? Folks, let's keep order now. Any other folks would like to come forward and speak on this particular agenda item? Please come forward and state your name and address with zip code for the record, please.
My name is Theodore Pepin, and I live at 3569 Crestwind. That's 38138 for the zip code. I'd like to bring to the Alderman's attention and also to the city attorney something that's called the Planned Unit Development. It's Division 19 of the Germantown Code, Section 23-566. And if you look at that very carefully, it says no modification of the district requirements or subdivision regulations may be allowed when such proposed modification would result in. And then there's a series of points, A, B, C, D, and E. And E says a detrimental impact on the surrounding area The developer has set up a plan that maximizes the impact on the surrounding area. We have suggested, as a community, a plan that would minimize the impact. The developer has chosen not to accept any recommendations, and consequently, we are dealing with a plan that is a maximum, and incidentally, the drawing that's up there is not the drawing that he showed us last week. So this is a floating business, and the alderman ought to take a very square look at it before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt. Who would like to come forward and speak? Anyone else would like to come forward and speak? Please come forward, state your name, address, and zip code for the record, please.
Hello, I'm Kevin Speed. I live at 9181 Forest Downs, 38138, and represent the Forest Downs Homeowners Association in Hollow Creek. I have to kind of reiterate what these other folks have said. I mean, you've heard it all before. It's nothing, a whole lot's changed, and that's the frustration. You don't feel like you get much cooperation and change. This subdivision is not in keeping with what we were promised when we were annexed. We went along with the changes to the 15,000 square foot lots, being promised there'd be an Oakley type of subdivision at the minimum out there. You have a chance to do something really nice that could really make that area improve. And there's that Winchester stigma sometimes. I don't know why that is. It's inside of Germantown. It's the lowest crime area in Germantown from a statistical standpoint, from what I understand. There's no crime there. But you put 2 or 3 apartment complexes, 3, 4, 5, 600, 1,000 units down there eventually, and 232 houses to start with on lots of 65 feet wide. There will be crime. You know it's coming. It'll be part of it. We don't want to see that, and we're promised that that wasn't the type of development we were going to get when we got annexed into the city. There's a lot of concerns out there from the standpoint of drainage. You've heard them all. There's considerations about fire. 5-foot setbacks on these houses. That's like this. I think there was in one of the other meetings, there was concerns about getting fire equipment into these homes. Should there be a fire, and that's not enough width to even get fire equipment behind these homes. So the developer has said they would put sprinklers into the houses, but that could fall way short. There are also other concerns. You see the stub outs on these maps. They don't show everything all the time, but there's stub outs into additional acreages to the north and to the west that will certainly fall prey to the same type of development once you get an established T4, TC, T3, whatever the T may be, and the density as they fall, that gives them a footprint to go further and further down that road, which puts these homes, lower priced, price point homes, right in our backyards. And there's people out there that do not agree with that are not here tonight. But I'm sure they'll be voice their concerns at additional meetings, but we would like to ask you to reconsider this. We're not happy with this density choice, and I would ask you, Alderman Owens, if you were the estimated car flow was 580 cars per day out of this subdivision. If that was going into your subdivision where your children and our grandchildren may be playing, would you feel good about it? That's not something that people feel happy about. That's an area out there that has open area where you can walk and play ball and whatever, but all of a sudden you put 580 cars a day going through, everything changes. I mean, would you approve that?
You have about 15 seconds, Mr. Speed. If you could
Just
wrap
curious.
up. We're not engaging in the board. Your rhetorical question's well stated.
Okay. Well, thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Speed. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak on this particular agenda item? Please do so now. Yes, sir. Please come forward. State your name, address with zip code for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Wade Walker, 9290 Hollow Creek Cove, 38138. Germantown has a very unique culture, character, that makes it very attractive. And I'm just looking at our logo up here. It just it makes you think of Germantown. I've recently heard over 1,000 new apartment and housing developments in the planning stages on north and south of Winchester, close to where I live. And a couple of questions. I'm not sure why we want to change the character of Germantown so much. This seems very dramatic. The other question is, along Alderman Massey's, is I would be very interested in seeing a cost-benefit analysis of developing 1 or 2 acre estate-style homes versus smaller, lower cost homes. I don't know if the income from selling more homes is more, but I know the requirements for police, fire, school expenses are going to be a lot more with that many more housing units coming in. The new school is going right behind my house. I've been going to those meetings. I heard a lot of the requirements for that school was from the overflow of students in the district now. I didn't hear anything about the 1,000 new housing units being planned. So I don't know next year if we're going to be required or asked to approve another new school based on all of this development. So again, it seems like there's a lot of, I don't know if the financial analysis has been done. I don't think it's been shared publicly if it has, but I think that would be very important information to have as we change the character of Germantown. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Appreciate it. Anybody else would like to come forward and speak on this particular item? Anyone who would like to come forward and speak on this particular item? If you could state your name, address, and zip code for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Mike Ray. I'm at 9125 Forest Downs, which is the southeast corner of Forest Hill Irene and Forest Downs. Germantown, let's face it, it's an exclusive area, and we would like to keep it that way. If you want to put cheap houses with a Germantown address, we're against it, bottom line. I would like to reiterate everything that these guys just said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Anyone else would like to come forward and speak on this particular item? Anyone? Anyone like to speak on this item before the hearing is closed? Seeing no one come forward, the public hearing is now concluded. We return to the agenda item. We've got a motion and a second. Any questions for staff? Alderman Barzizza.
Yes, Mr. Ross, would you turn put the slide on that has the 2016, and what happened with that plan?
It's worked its way through construction plan approval, and the developer had the option to purchase the remaining property north of him and to move forward with this development plan that you see in front of you tonight. So
he shifted gears on the neighbors.
I believe he is working with the neighbors to come up with an amicable opportunity, but it's an opportunity presented itself. You'd have to talk to the developer about that, but I think shifting gears is being a little disingenuous about it.
So it is the same developer with a different plan.
It is the same developer with a different plan.
To increase density and earnings.
I will say, and I think it bears mentioning at this point, this plan, 185 lots, was approved as a concept. It did not take into consideration any of the drainage or stormwater that we've been discussing throughout this process. So when you look at this and you consider where drainage would be handled, there isn't an opportunity to do that with 185 15,000 square foot lots, especially when you have a blue line stream that is regulated as waters of the state, TDEC, that requires a significant larger investment by the developer to mitigate that, work around it, work with it, include it. So they've done that in spades by making sure that they've improved the conditions both in pipes and in these drop pools and ponds to make sure that they both respond to the context on the west side of the development, the 15,000 square foot lots that are adjacent to the 60 some odd homes that are within the Crestwin neighborhood, and then moving with their density closer to the context that's more appropriate based on the way that the city has moved forward with the zoning to maximize our return on investment with the limited amount of land that we have in the city.
Any other questions for staff? Alderman Yonda.
Mr. Ross, do you know what price range these houses are going to be going for?
The developer has mentioned price points between $350 and $600, but I'd have to let them verify that. They are in attendance, and they do have a slideshow that you may want to see.
Okay. Alderman Massey.
So, Mr. Ross, I do have concerns about what Ms. Garofalo expressed regarding the detrimental development issues to their neighborhoods. I'm not sure that these issues are necessarily the fault of the developer themselves, though. It seems to me like the city negotiated with these residents many years ago to reach a compromise at the 15,000 square foot lots. And so now the city is, in my opinion, going back on their word to make sure that that subdivision remained a state lot subdivision. And so I'm struggling with that. Now, in my discussions with the developer, particularly Cindy Reeves, who has been wonderful throughout this process for me personally. She has been very informative, very patient, and at least willing to listen. So we're going to be increasing the density on these folks to a great degree. My question, I guess, is was this reasonably foreseeable for these folks who agreed to these 15,000 square foot lots originally? Or are we changing things to benefit the developer and going back on our word to these residents who are already there?
Two things. One, under the plan unit development process, the density has to remain the same of 3 dwelling units to the acre. What they proposed through the variety of lot types and also working with the lay of the land, the topography, the drainage, still results in 3 dwelling units to the acre of the area that they are developing. So that is talking about the lots themselves. So the density isn't changing. It's just the lot types, the lot widths, the lot sizes that are changing. There's still going to be a larger number of lots, but the density per unit acre, so 232 lots built over this 99 and change acreage is still going to be the same when you take out the drainage work and the road network and all the other amenities that the developer has designed into this to mitigate the issues, the blue line stream, the stormwater drainage, and other issues that standard residential zoning that was brought forward with the Versailles concept would not have been able to address in its configuration.
Okay, well, let's not call it density then. Let's just focus on the numbers themselves. I think the 15,000 square foot lots would allow for somewhere around 185 lots, correct?
Under standard R, 185 lots.
Right, and so under the new plan, though, we're going to 238 lots.
232.
Okay, so 232 lots. So that's an increase from 185 to 232 lots. So we are going to have more lots, which means we're going to have more people. If you want to argue that that's not increasing the density, I don't quite understand that. To me, it's increasing the number of lots and allowing more people to live there. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And Mr. Owens is saying that it's not allowing more people to live there, but there's more lots, right? There's more residential lots that are going to be in the subdivision. Is that correct?
Not than would be allowed under the R zoning district. You are allowed 50, I'm sorry.
Alderman Owens, just let Mr. Ross answer the question and then proceed, please.
15,000 square feet is 3 units to the acre, any which way you cut the pie. This is 3 units to the acre. It's just a different way of cutting the pie. So they're using the land in a different way because they're using a portion of the land to manage the stormwater drainage issues that have been an issue for this area since prior to our annexation, as I'm sure some of these residents will have probably informed you about.
And it's my understanding we can address the stormwater issues regardless of whether we change the street, the way the street's constructed to accommodate what the residents want, and we can still do it with a 15,000 square foot lot. So under either plan, we can mitigate the stormwater damage, but we can't alleviate it. It's not going away. The problem is there, and from what I understand from the experts, that can't be stopped. We're always going to have some drainage problems in that area. But I think I would like to ask a question of the developer, if you don't mind.
If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Cindy Reeves, SR Consulting, 5909 Shelby Oaks Drive, Suite 200.
So are we increasing the number of lots? Is that what's going on? Will there be more people living in this subdivision?
If you calculate 3 units per acre, you're allowed to have, and you have 99 acres of land, you're allowed to have 297 lots. So we are decreasing the amount of lots that would be allowed under that calculation.
But under what, the 15,000 square foot, you're saying that the actual number of lots is going to actually be decreasing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when they said that there was 185 lots with the 15,000 square foot split, how are those numbers changing?
Excuse me. The 15,000 square foot lots would allow 3 units per acre. We have 99 acres. That would allow 297 lots. The plan that you're referring to, the 185 lots, was a conceptual plan that was filed with the zoning. And this is not, this is our conceptual plan with our plan development that we are asking the board to please approve this evening.
Well, we talked about changing the road construction, the way that road was done to alleviate some of the folks that might drive through their neighborhood. And we talked about maybe going back to the 15,000 square foot lots, although that wasn't favored by the developers. So tonight, is that something y'all would be agreeable to? I mean, if somebody makes a motion to either change this outline plan to go back to the 15,000 square foot lots or make that amendment to the road, would that work? And if not, would you be okay if we postpone this and got some more information and you guys continue to work this out?
I have a presentation that I would like for the board to be able to see that will address a lot of the comments that have been brought up by the neighbors and by the board that I would like to present whenever the opportunity is given.
Everybody else would, yeah.
Would the board like to see this? Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Reeves.
Okay. This is Goodwin Farms, Germantown Legacy. The Forest Hill Heights District was approved in 2016, and that was prior to us obtaining the rest of the property. Once we realized that there would be T3, T4, and office zoning adjacent to us, then it warranted us to look at this piece of property in order to transition the zoning from the west to the east. That allows your smaller lots are along the eastern edge where you have just approved this evening an outline and a conceptual plan that puts 2 to 3 story apartments adjacent to this site. So having a 15,000 square foot lot adjacent to a 2 to 3 story apartment complex that you just approved, it doesn't make any sense. We also looked at the entire piece of property and we saw benefits that we can give to the neighbors in as far as infrastructure, drainage, traffic. We have looked and worked very, very closely with the neighborhood and done a lot of work, a lot of conceptual plans. And what tonight is just approval of a conceptual plan. We will be coming forward with final plans each year as we are developing the property. The very first phase is a final plan that is all 15,000 square foot minimum lots. Most of those are 16,000s. All of the lots that are going to be abutting the, let me see the good, all the lots that will be abutting Crestwind, and I'm trying to see where the red dot is. Hunt Green? Got it. Thanks. All these lots are 16,000 square foot lots. What Bob Sweeney did was he increased, and these are also 16s, he increased those an additional 10 foot in order to not grade up to the property line, and that was helping the drainage. He also has done a plan, and I'm going to skip forward and backwards so that I can make all my points. This is how the drainage goes today, which you can see you've got a lot of water that is going to be that does go through the Crestwind subdivision. What Bob Sweeney's new design is putting all that drainage in the streets and going to the detention ponds, as you can see down here. And so all the drainage that you're only going to have is the back of these properties right here. You'll have the rear of the properties and the rear of those houses that will be going on to Crestwind. And we're also diverting a lot of this water that you see is all going towards their subdivision. It swarms around and it goes over to this ditch and down to this blue line stream. We're going to clean up this marsh area here, and we're going to realign that ditch, redefine the ditch that is there, that is existing, and turn that into a very nice amenity area. Let me go back to, this is the amenity area that we're talking about that will go in where the detention area is right here. This is the original plan that was approved by the Planning Commission. This is the plan that we have presented to the neighbors, that we have gone to extreme changes in order to make the subdivision less of a direct connection, like the Versailles plan did a straight connection from the roundabout into their neighborhood, and you saw straight into it. What this plan does is it turns the traffic away so that you don't see that that is a direct connection. It also, when you come out of Crestwind, you go to the stub. It's a more difficult turn in order to go through their subdivision. These 2 points of connectivity also make their subdivision a safer subdivision. Right now, you have 1 point of access for an entire mile-long road, and you can see that right here. So right now you have 1 point of access. They have no access to the west, and they have no access right now to the east. Our phase 1 will give their first point of access to the east, and our phase 6 or further will complete the connection, the second connection, and we've done that with our phasing plan. And I'm sorry, trying to answer all these questions, it makes it a little bit difficult. What we've done is phase 1 is the minimum 15,000 square foot lots that were approved basically with a new design that makes this flow much better now that we own all the rest of the property. What we have done, this will be phase 2. In the revised plan, this street here comes out. And remember, this is conceptual only, so the plan that you would approve tonight is conceptual. When we come in with the final plans, this connection will come out. This will have the new alignment, and we will still continue to work to see if we can come up with any kind of an alignment between now and then. But this is, phase 5 and 6 up in here, and what we've tried to do is do the smaller lots back in here, take this as your construction road, not have any houses living there, so you go your phase 2 and 3 and 4, and then 5, and then go down to 6. And I know that Cameron's phasing plan was a lot brighter than mine. And then these homes along here will be closer, this will be the last homes right here that will be built. And that way we were also trying to be considerate of the construction traffic for the neighborhood. The water was another issue. Before phase 1 can be constructed, be approved, we have to have in place the bore permit with the railroad in order to bore under the railroad to put the water line in under the railroad. Phase 1 will loop the water, and you'll still have a water looping system that will make these lots will be safe. It will increase the water pressure in this area by looping that water. And then phase 2 we're either going to be putting in the water line with phase 2 or phase 3, and we're not sure which phase that it goes in, but it will be no later than phase 3 is what we've agreed to. And it depends on, now that we have a newer design, our phasing will also change because this is conceptual only. The drainage is going to be decreased by this development. It's not going to fix their drainage problems, but it's going to be decreased tremendously with this project. The 580 cars that were talked about, those cars are not going to be going through their subdivision. They are not going to be going through their subdivision. They're going to be going out onto Winchester Road. Their subdivision has a 2-lane road. It has no curb and gutter. It's a mile long. It has 1 point of access in, 1 point of access out. Right now, that's not safe. If you have a fire or you need an ambulance and you're at the end of that road and a tree has fallen or the road has gotten blocked, you can't get to them to help them. You're gonna decrease your time to get to them to help them, the way that their subdivision is currently designed. And we feel that will help their safety concerns also, as much as it will help all of the connectivity. With what you've also got, when you talk about connectivity, there will not be any additional lots along the east, because that is MLG&W property. It's not an easement. It's MLG&W property, and you are not allowed to cross that property with a road. Our traffic will be the only traffic going through their subdivision if they decide to go that way. With the design that we've got, it is designed to where going through their subdivision is not the route that you're going to want to take. And that's with this new design. And we would just, you want me to wrap it up? Okay. We feel this is a benefit for Germantown. We feel it's a benefit for the community. The developers, Regency Homes, has developed Somerset subdivision. That's 43 lots, an average lot size of 5,454 square feet is their smallest lot. They go to 17,772 square feet. And that has been a very successful subdivision. These are going to be $400,000 and up homes, and this will be something that will benefit Germantown and the community. We feel this is something that Germantown will be proud of, and we want to be proud of it too, and we would appreciate your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Reeves. Questions for staff or the developer?
Do I still have time remaining?
You have 2 minutes.
So, Ms. Reeves, I said I appreciated you working with me on this, and I love homes. I told you that. I love seeing homes built in Germantown. I have concerns about the density of this project. But my primary opposition to the plan is that I feel like I have a responsibility to protect those people that lived on those residential lots and believed that they were going to be surrounded by similar lot sizes. So that's what I'm struggling with. I've told you that from the beginning, and I wanted to find a compromise. I still hope that maybe we could postpone this and find a compromise. But I just don't think it was necessarily foreseeable for these folks to live next to these 6,500 square foot lots. Now, it may or may not increase the traffic flow through their neighborhoods, but it does considerably change the makeup of their neighborhood. And to me, I just think I have a duty to protect them and oppose it under the circumstances. So my question for you is, do you want to go forward with this tonight, or do you want to take some time and possibly go back with those neighbors and see if an agreement can be made?
This is a conceptual plan, just like the plan that you just approved. And as we've always stated, we're not trying to harm this community or this neighborhood. And we will continue as phases go. Just because we have all of this, just because we have this conceptual plan doesn't mean that that's exactly how every single phase is going to lay out. It's conceptual only. It's an outline plan. And that's what we're asking the board to approve tonight, is the outline plan. And we are going to continue working with the neighborhood. We feel that our new plan, we don't know what's going to happen 5-6 years down the road whenever this final plan comes before the Planning Commission and the mayor and board. And we are going to continue to work and be good neighbors. We want to improve their neighborhood.
But what I'm hearing is, as of tonight, you can't commit to those compromises that we discussed at the meetings with the Crestwind neighbors.
I'm not sure what we're going to gain from it. I'm going to let Paul Ryan.
I'm Paul Ryan with Regency Home Builders, and I believe your question was whether we wanted to postpone it.
Yes, sir.
And I think at this point we do not want to postpone it, but I want to address the issue that was in that meeting, because it really, as I understood the last meeting we had with you in front of the neighbors, they felt like the lot sizes were okay if we could adjust the access on the northernmost point. Forestwood Drive, I believe it is. It's not? Okay, well then, that was my understanding. It's sometimes a little hard to, it seems that we sometimes have a little bit of a moving target. But to answer your question directly, I feel like we delayed this for 1 month, and we'd like to move forward with it tonight. But if I could, I'd also like to address an issue that Alderman Barziza brought up earlier.
Well, in a moment. That concludes your 10 minutes, Alderman, and Vice Mayor has been patient. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Cindy, if you will, just remain for a moment. Mr. Ryan, I feel like I haven't seen y'all in about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
We met, and I brought forward 3 of my concerns when we met with your development team and also with your sales team. Water, traffic, density. That's what we discussed. And for me, because my questions were answered regarding density. Having seen what the market will bear these days, smaller lot sizes, smaller structures, as far as that being the way that we're moving, it seems to be, in the industry. Those questions were answered. Traffic questions were answered by the way that things were made with that roundabout curvature. We were able to show that. The main question for me then was the water. And Mr. Sweeney's plan with, we call you, or you're thought of as a guru, the person to go to when there are water issues. While I did not grow up in Crestwind Hills, my best friends were there growing up. So I've been in that area. I know what is expected from any future development over there. And I went through the process of being able to see what can be. That's part of our job here on this dais, is to have the vision to see what can be. I don't believe, and I asked for commitments from Sean and from Paul, that this development be one that we as a city could be proud of. Not only the neighbors to the west could be proud of. These are not going to be cheaply made homes. I've seen the work that you've done. I can attest to the fact that they're not. So my question, and it may be that you may want to come forward to discuss that water, that this will be an improved plan, certainly from what's there now, but not going backwards to a plan that is no longer. This is the plan that we have before us.
Yes,
The question simply is, are you comfortable with the water being addressed in a way that he's coming forward?
Yes, ma'am.
You can state your name.
And this can also, Bob can also talk about the the other plan that we were asked to look at.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Bob Sweeney, SR Consulting, 5909 Shelby Oaks Drive, 38134. Wow, let's see. We can get, this exhibit is the existing topography. North is to the right. These big heavy lines are ridge lines. That's where the water breaks and goes in other directions. The arrows are pointing downhill. Currently, all of this water that is beyond this line goes into a ditch that goes through the backyards of all these properties. It then goes into an area that the ditch is totally silted in. This whole area right through here, it looks like a ditch, but it's really not. It's just a small swale and doesn't carry the water away. Our very first phase is down in this area, and its main drainage issue is to clean this out, define that ditch the way it's supposed to be, and put in detention to serve this area. We have, well, let's see if we can get back to something.
And Mr. Sweeney, as you find that, is it my understanding that there has been work on the ditch already, things that have been cleared out?
There probably has. I haven't visited it recently, but there probably has. There certainly needs to have been. It's not only just silt, but it's grown up with trees. It's just been left fallow, and it has grown up with trees. This is the ditch that I was talking about. We have four detention ponds on this project to try to control all the water. So we're doing everything we can to take care of all of the storm drainage that is coming onto us. City engineer Tim has indicated this is the box culvert. It's the same one that's going through all of these properties. It's designed for a 100-year storm, but it's a 100-year storm from farmland. So we can't do that. We just can't let it go. We've got to get back to that area and make sure that we don't overload the downstream areas also. Okay.
Alderman Gibson, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Gibson, did you yield the floor?
I do, for now.
Alderman Owens, you have not spoken at this particular time. Would you like the floor?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I may be one of the few in this room who has the privilege, or maybe not the right word, to have been involved in this development, this piece of property, rather, back when I was on staff from 1995 to 2005, and then again in the Planning Commission setting, and then now here is the latest phases of development through my alderman status. I know there's been several of the homeowners have been here since that time as well. I wanted to just stress a few points, and really a lot of those points have still been made, or have been made prior to me with Alderman Gibson and Cindy, but I think we have a built-in idea that smaller lots and smaller homes equals less quality. And that just is not the case, and I think I would argue that our friends who live in the Enclave and our friends that live in Lansdowne, which incidentally back up to my home, or right across the street from my home, would argue that those are very nicely and well-built homes that have sold for large amounts of money, and I believe this will be the same type of development. I would charge anyone to come up with, as far as local developers go, Regency Homes is one of the best. We know that. They're building in our city right now high-quality homes for very high prices, some that I even question. But regardless, high-quality homes. Boyle the same way. I mean, Boyle is a developer who is going to hold a property, build a property, hold it, and make sure that it is maintained in a satisfactory manner to the city and the neighborhood. I know, Cameron, you mentioned some of the quote-unquote variances that we were looking at, with the revised lot sizes and setbacks. And I don't know if you mentioned, with the plan development, in order to achieve that, the developer has to provide such things as amenities, such as walking paths, a greenway path that will extend along throughout the entire perimeter of this property. We've got gazebos, we've got roundabouts, we've got streetscape design that will make this very, very nice neighborhood for the developers the residents who will be living here. I think that there's a no doubt that in Germantown there is a very strong market, a very strong demand for this type of mixed housing type, if you will. Not everyone wants a 15,000, 17,000 square foot lot. They would like to see a smaller lot and stay in a smaller lot. And the way this plan has been presented, at least in my mind, this is my opinion, I think it's a good transitional use as we buffer larger lots on the west side there as we transition to the east, closer to the former commercially zoned property, now multifamily. With the planned development, it is an appropriate transition to that type of zoning. I guess what I'm saying is I think this is a good plan. I believe that this neighborhood, once developed in its capacity, it'll complement our new school site. I think it will complement our city, and I think it will complement the adjacent neighborhood. I am going to be looking when this plan comes back in final form in the future for exactly that or better. I understand that Ms. Reeves has told me how they've got to route the drainage through the street system, and I understand that, having been around development all my life. I would encourage you to continue to look, Mr. Sweeney, at ways that might be done in some other capacity, but I believe this is a great compromise in terms of providing that stub that is not a direct access through the neighborhood, and I think that when this is developed, the homeowners will go straight down that main boulevard there and onto Winchester and access the property in that manner and ingress and egress that property in that manner. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. We've got a proper motion and a second. Yes, Alderman Yonda.
Ms. Reeves, I'm going to confirm we're talking about $400,000 to $600,000. Is that what we're talking about on these?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And these are some obviously zero lot lines that are on there. I mean, I lived in Roanoke for 15 years, and I don't know if that is a lot size in Roanoke, but so it's going to be, what style houses are we talking about? Are we talking about federal? Are we talking about, I haven't seen any of that.
I actually have some examples.
I feel like I'd seen something previously.
Yes. I didn't want to get into it unless someone had a question.
Yeah.
This is the Somerset development, and you can see, there's some small lots in there also.
Okay.
This is an example lot of a type A plan, which is a 3,272 square foot house. As you can see, it's a very attractive home.
Right.
It's not a very inexpensive home to build by any means with the amenities that are in it. This is an example of a lot B type plan,
Right.
which is 2,949 square feet. A lot C, which is 3,218 square feet. A lot D typical plan, 2,996 square foot. And the A lot is the 15,000 square foot lot.
So, and
B,
all the 15,000 are backed up. We have 15,000 to the neighbors in the Crestman area. Every one of those are backed up.
Yes, sir. All of phase one, all of the lots that back up to Crestwind, and the lots that back up to King and the south side of the Grant property are actually 16,000 square foot lots, not 15.
So if you take into consideration enclave and enclave estates where I live, that's basically going to be the same concept. You're going to have the zero lot line in a certain area, and then you're going to have the larger homes in another area, basically. Isn't that right?
That's correct, and we put the smaller
And that's working out
lots.
great for everybody there as far as I can tell, and I live there. So I think we're going to be okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. In regards to what was said early on, most of the seven gentlemen that spoke, Mr. Babian was pretty explicit as to the time frame, 2004, when Alderman Parrish made the promise. I live by promises. I live by my word. Mayor Goldsworthy and the Board of Aldermen at that point in time made those promises to the stakeholders of the residents in that area. And I'm very concerned that this body here would vote in favor unless you and Regency get together and work further with the stakeholders to get them, use the expression warm and fuzzy, to get everybody together on this. I think it's imperative that at least an attempt be made to reconcile the differences that these 7 gentlemen have had tonight and others in the area have. There were promises made. I live by promises. I'll die by my promises. If I can't fulfill the promise, I'm already dead. I'll be dead. And so the bottom line is the city made an overture to Mr. Babian, Mr. Garaffa, Mr. Cannon, Mr. Speed, Mr. Ray, and all the rest in 2004. And Dr. Parrish, Alderman Parrish, was the one who championed this for them. I'm going to stick with what Dr. Parrish, Alderman Parrish, had to say, and I will vote no, just predicated on what promises were made by the former administration.
Thank you, Alderman. We do have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzissa?
No.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
The motion carries. We will, for the sake of the board and some of the staff members and the audience, we will take a short, very short 5-minute recess. Very, very short. And we will reconvene in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. You get your drive back.
Okay.
If you could please take your seats. We are about to conclude our very brief recess. Thank you for your patience for the entire evening. As people are starting to settle back in and or leaving, we'll go ahead and move to item number 15 on the agenda, election of Janet Geyer, Julie Klein, Keith Saunders, Henry Evans, Mike Harless, and Dick Vosberg to the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This agenda item comes to you really in two parts. The first part is as a result of the recent resignation of Mr. Daniel Dent, who has served on the Germantown Industrial Development Board for a number of years. He resigned as a result of relocating to another city. As a result of that, the mayor has nominated Ms. Janet Geyer to complete his term, which would continue through December 31st, 2021. Each of you have been provided with the application completed by Ms. Geyer as well as her current resume, all of which appears that she is highly qualified to serve on the IDB. The other part of the agenda item is this. Earlier in the year, there was the election of Mr. Dave Clavan to serve on the IDB. At that time, there was an issue that was raised about whether a member of the IDB was to be elected or appointed. We determined that the proper approach was for the mayor to nominate such a candidate and for the board to elect that candidate. After that was concluded, we went back and we looked at the entire history of the service of members of the IDB and determined that over the years, while initially the word elected was used, it became appointed. And in every instance, those members of the IDB came before the BMA and their appointment was approved, but the words elected were not used. So we are taking this opportunity, the administration is taking this opportunity at our advice to correct that and to show that each of the current serving members of the IDB be elected to serve their current terms. Mr. Clavan is not included because, as I stated, he was elected earlier in this year. So the remaining members of the board, Ms. Julie Klein, Mr. Keith Saunders, Mr. Henry Evans, Mr. Mike Harless, and Mr. Dick Vosberg are on the agenda tonight so that they may be elected to fill these terms.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Is there a motion to elect Ms. Janet Geyer to serve on the Board of Directors of the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board until December 31st, 2021?
Move to approve.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions for staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Massey.
First, I'd like to start by I have a 12-page response to Attorney Harris's opinion that he gave on this matter that he emailed me this week. The board has not seen my response to Attorney Harris's opinion, and I would first like to make a motion to have my response to his opinion included in the official minutes tonight. So that will be my first thing that I'll do. So I'd like to make a motion to have my response to Attorney Harris's opinion included in the official minutes and then allow the board to read it.
There's a motion so stated. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzisa?
Yes.
Alderman Gibson?
No.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens? No. Alderman Young?
No.
The motion fails. You continue to have the floor.
So the board hasn't had an opportunity to hear any opinion other than Attorney Harris's. I've made the point before that Attorney Harris's firm represents both the city and the Industrial Development Board. There's a potential conflict there. We're receiving an opinion from an attorney whose partner or law firm employee is also serving the needs of the IDB. One of the things that Mayor Goldsworthy assured us is that there would be a separation between the city and the Industrial Development Board. So that in itself, I think, creates a conflict, and I really wish the board had taken the opportunity to read the rest of my opinion. My second motion is going to be to postpone this vote tonight to give the board an opportunity to read this response to Attorney Harris's opinion. That's a motion.
So a motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and a second. Any discussion? Vice Mayor.
Attorney Harris, is it your opinion, as our city attorney, that we are following proper procedure and protocol here?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes. I
Alderman
think the
Barzis.
citizens of Germantown have a right to know what Mr. Massey has entered into, the letter that he has sent, not just the citizens of Germantown, but I think I have the right as well. I think all of us should be more informed in general as to his findings. And then I also want to ask Mr. Harris, that is it not state law in regards to the IDB that the members of the IDB have to have a certain criteria or area of employment in order to be on IDB?
Yes, the state statute provides that members of the IDB be a member of certain civic organizations. One of the recommended ones is the Chamber of Commerce. They could also be members of other similar civic organizations. And each of the candidates that the mayor has nominated have such criteria, and that was part of the information that has been
Well, since we don't have that criteria in front of us, I do know Ms. Geyer, and she's a fine lady. And I do know everyone else for that matter, but I do not know what positions they fill in regards to what is mandated by the state to be on IDB.
Well, y'all can speak to the relative merits of each candidate if you'd like. That's within your domain, but let me share with you that, of course, each of the members that have served on the IDB, some of them are the original members, so their service is as long as 16 years. With regard to civic organizations, that information was provided to the mayor and the board of aldermen last week in an email that went to all of you. And in each case, they're qualified.
Well, I dare say, since you didn't get that email, I didn't get that email. So
well, nobody's even said.
But anyway, the bottom line is there not employment qualifications as well besides civic and other endeavors within the city of Germantown?
No, that language is not included in the state statute.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Mayor, I think we're on the motion now. We're still going to have an opportunity to come back and actually discuss the merits of the agenda item itself, correct? I just don't want to get off topic. I'll be glad to make comments now or wait until we actually discuss the agenda items just to help.
There's a motion, and it's been seconded.
And it has to deal with.
It's a motion to postpone, as I recall.
Motion to postpone. Okay, it's been seconded.
Well, I do think this is relevant at this point that I'm gonna make. You know, and it kind of relates to what Alderman Barzis said, but. You know, TCA 753-301, the requirement is that the members of the Industrial Development Board shall be elected by the governing body of the municipality. So the state law doesn't say anything about allowing the mayor to appoint these members. So my concern, which I have stated previously several times when we had the original issue with Mr. Clavan, is that these members were never appointed according to state law. And that's always been a problem. And now we're being asked to ratify what could very well be an illegal act. So we can't, you know, you have the mayor's administration acting outside of the charter to nominate these people, as you said, back to the beginning of the Industrial Development Board. What should have been done is the Board of Aldermen, the legislative branch, should have been the ones that elected these members from the bodies that Alderman Barziza mentioned. It's just the Chamber of Commerce, the Board of Trade, or other similar civic organizations. We can't go back in time now and determine if the mayor even selected these original members from those organizations. So I don't see how we can be asked to vote on this to ratify what was obviously an invalid, if not illegal, action back to that date. And I really think that you and the board should take an opportunity and read what I've written in response to your opinion, because things like this are important. You know, we need to act legally as a board when we vote to do this. And I'm not sure that the legislative branch can even act at this point to ratify actions by this mayor or previous mayors.
Thank you, Alderman Massey.
So I guess my question is, can we act, why are we being asked to ratify acts that were outside of the charter by the executive branch of the city?
If I could, as the head of administration, we're asking you to elect this body now, so you can vote for these people or not.
Well, the problem is that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen should be the ones that actually select these members, that we elect them from these bodies. We should open up the nomination process again, or not the nomination process, the application process again, and select from these groups. I think that it's the authority of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, the aldermen, to elect these folks. It's not the mayor's.
You do have the authority to elect them. That's what we're asking you to do.
Well,
I have, the attorney has made the statement that we're in compliance on the nomination process.
Well, the attorney said that I was wrong about this issue when it was first raised by Mr. Clavan several months ago. So I'm not sure he's correct about this time.
There's an opinion from the 17th of this year. You're correct. Alderman Owens.
Call the question, please, Mayor.
The question has been called. Please call the roll.
This is to delay it.
Correct.
Alderman Gibson?
No.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
No.
Alderman Yonda?
No.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Motion fails. We return to the proposed motion to elect Ms. Janet Geyer. Is there any discussion on Ms. Geyer's qualifications?
Is Ms. Geyer an officer of any other commission in Germantown?
She's a member of the Economic Development Commission, I believe.
So, Attorney Harris, the state law and the bylaws prohibit officers of the city from serving as officers of the Industrial Development Board. This is a point I've raised in the past as well, and you and I disagree on it. But you know, I've read state law, I've read how officer is used throughout the charter, and I don't think there's really a question that members of our commissions are actually officers of the city. So therefore, Ms. Geyer, as much as I like her, as much as I fought for her previously, you know, I think she is precluded from serving as an officer on the IDB as long as she is a member of one of our other commissions. She is an officer, and state law prohibits her from serving as an officer on the IDB.
Thank you, Alderman Massey. We have an opinion on that from our city attorney, and he is an attorney in good standing. Vice Mayor?
Not to beat a dead horse, but since we're here, you gave us an opinion in February on this very subject. You are an attorney. This is your field. In your opinion, is an officer of the city the same thing as a commission member or a board member?
No, the February 17th opinion, which is a 4-page opinion and has citations to various provisions in state law, as well as our local ordinances, provides that people that serve on other boards and commissions in the city of Germantown may in fact be elected a member of the IDB. That's what we opined on February the 17th, and our opinion has not changed. It's the combined opinion of a number of lawyers in our firm.
Question's been called. Please call the roll.
Well, now,
Now, this is your third time to speak.
Well,
Alderman
we're calling
Massey.
the question, though, and I'm not sure the discussion of it. And calling the question just to cut off the discussion, I'm not sure that that is the correct use of calling the question to begin with.
You've had the floor on 2 occasions on this specific item. Question has been called. There's been a proper motion. Is there any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzisa?
What's the motion? I mean, this is.
To elect Janet Geyer to serve on the Board of Directors of the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board until December 31st, 2021.
Yes, on Janet Geyer.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
As long as Ms. Geyer is an officer of another commission, under state law, I
Point of
cannot
order.
vote.
Point of
to-
order. What is your point of order, Vice Mayor?
When voting, we need to vote yes, no, or abstain.
That's a good point. I consider that proper point of order. Please vote.
I cannot vote for Ms. Geyer under the circumstances, so my answer is no.
Thank you.
Alderman Owen?
Yes.
Was that the entire roll? Thank you. The motion carries. Is there a motion to elect Ms. Julie Klein to serve on the Board of Directors of the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board until December 31st, 2017? And Ms. Klein is in attendance this evening. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Alderman Massey.
Ms. Klein is a member of a number of commissions, including one of mine, so I like Ms. Klein, but under the circumstances, I think we'll be in violation of state law if we vote to elect Ms. Klein to the Industrial Development Board, as long as she is serving as a member of one of our other commissions. So I'm sorry, Ms. Klein.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Owens.
I respectfully disagree with Alderman Massey's opinion and agree with Chairman Harris's opinion. And I don't think we need to have to go through this rhetoric for every single one of these
Thank you.
items.
Thank you, Alderman Owens. Both of you make fine attorneys.
Well, what's
Please.
Alderman Owens? What grounds? I mean, maybe you can explain.
I just cut off Alderman Owens. Thank you, Alderman, for speaking forward. Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzisa?
Yes.
Alderman Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Is there a motion to elect Mr. Keith Saunders to serve on the Board of Directors of the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board until December 31st, 2017?
So moved.
It's a motion.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzisa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Is there a motion to elect Mr. Henry Evans to serve on the Board of Directors of the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board until December 31st, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. That was Vice Mayor Gibson seconding. Any discussion?
Mr. Evans, a member of any of the commission?
I'll have to ask the clerk. I don't think currently.
I don't think he is
not.
anymore.
BZA last year.
I don't think he is now.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzisa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Thank you. The motion carries. Is there a motion to elect Mr. Mike Harless to serve on the Board of Directors of the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board until December 31st, 2019?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Alderman
I
Massey.
believe Mr. Harless serves on the Planning Commission, which I think in itself creates an additional conflict between the work that's done on the Planning Commission and on the Industrial Development Board. Also, would it go back to the issue of the officer? The charter clearly defines officer in Germantown as any member of a board, commission, or committee. It's very clear, Mr. Harris, that our board members are officers as defined in our city charter. So I really think we're making a mistake tonight.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yondo?
Yes.
Alderman Barzisa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owen?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. Is there a motion to elect Mr. Dick Vosberg to serve on the Board of Directors of the City of Germantown Industrial Development Board until December 31st, 2019?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Briefly.
Sure.
Mr. Vosberg is an officer, I believe, of the Financial Advisory Commission and the OPEB Commission. Alderman Yonda might be able to clarify that, but I know he's an officer, and just want to point that out to the board.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzisa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Alderman Owen?
Yes.
Alderman Yondo?
Yes.
The motion carries, and I would just conclude with, I very much, and the city appreciates the service of the Industrial Development Board over the last 17 years. We are concluded. Thank you.